I want to say welcome to all of you. My name is Shelley McClanahan. I am a senior national curriculum specialist. I am in the States. I am based out of Florida. However, today I am coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. So I get to travel and share our wonderful math programs with everyone. So again, this will be recorded. You'll get those recordings that are there. If you have any questions that things that you want to have answered, please go ahead and pop those into the Q&A. And if by chance we don't get to them, Laura will follow up with you on those as well. So I know that some of you are currently, you have Reveal Math and you're getting your year started. Some of you may have already done a little bit with it. And then others of you may be brand new and just kind of exploring a little bit about Reveal Math. So we're just going to give kind of a good overview of exactly what this is. And so I will check the chat every once in a while to see if there's any questions. That way I don't get distracted by stuff that's popping in there. But again, welcome here. I do want you to know that the Reveal Math middle school student experience, if you've ever used any of our math programs before, whether you use Glencoe Math or Math Connects or any of those prior iterations of that, you're still getting the great math that McGraw Hill has been known for 130, I think we're at 137 years now. But this new program turns it a little bit because it gives us an opportunity to do some both problem-based learning and some more kind of direct instruction and kind of blend those two together. It's a really amazing program that we are seeing great results with across the country. So it is a 2-volume interactive student edition. It's available in both English and Spanish. And I will let you know that in the online experience, the book itself, if it's opened in a new window, also works with all of the translation software. So if you need the book in another language, when I go online, I'll show you kind of what that looks like. But it's a 2-volume interactive book. The kids can write in them, and they would get new ones of those each year. And everything that's in the books is found in the digital experience. And then some of the things, though, are only digital. And so you unlock a wealth of resources when you look at the digital access that's there. And of course, there is an app for that for those students who need app-based access. So that app is our K-12 portal app, and that allows the students to download the books directly onto their app-enabled device. So that might be a phone, a Chromebook, a tablet, something like that, anything that runs on apps, and just allows them to access the content that's there. As teachers, it's a 2-volume teacher edition. You'll see it's spiral bound, so it makes it really easy to open it up and see it and be able to use it without the pages kind of closing up on you. There is often a assessment resource book that provides the Blackline Masters, and you can get all of this in the online experience as well, because the digital access is just second to none. And we'll take a look at the digital side of that. I'm very proud of this authorship team that has created this amazing book. I don't know if any of you all ever look for kind of YouTube videos and things like that, but my favorites here are definitely some John Sangiovanni and some Raj Shah, just mostly because their claim to fame is that they want students to have that awe-inspiring kind of aspect of the math. So I love them all, but those are just my 2 individual favorites that are there. But it's a program that's built to reveal curiosity, reveal understanding, which reveals unlimited possibilities all the way throughout as well. So one of the things that I want you to see is that the pacing is set up to be around 170 days. Now that is flexible. We offer some flexible pacing kind of outlines, but every course starts off with a unit 1 that is called Math Is, and the final unit is also called Math Is. So we're kind of setting the stage, and this is something that you would do those first few days of school when you're kind of setting the norms for your class. And there are ways to trim this down and save a little bit of time, but then we move through the content itself, and then it all wraps up with making sure that kids have a good understanding of it. So again, it's flexible pacing, but it is very exciting for students all the way through. So when we talk about that Math Is unit, The math is unit is, like I said, just kind of setting the norm, setting the stage for what students are going to be learning. It always starts with some sort of math attitude survey, as well as this amazing graphic organizer. So, how do our kids feel about math? Because everybody walked into their very first math class in kindergarten or first grade, and they all loved math. And sometimes by the time they get to middle school, they're a little unsure. So it's great to start to unlock what are those attitudes that our students have coming into math. Then what we'll also see is lesson 1-1 is called Math is Mine. And so this is starting to introduce students to the fact that math is all around us. And we start them off by taking a look at this be curious. And you'll see a little bit more of these be curious kinds of things as we move into more of the lessons. But it's setting the stage for where is math in the student's world? Where do they see that? What are their mathematical strengths? Those types of things as they go through. As we move into lesson 1-2, we start to get into those all important mathematical practices, the habits of mind that we want our students to be in. So again, you're going to notice here another be curious. So we're just asking kids, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And you're going to see each lesson is going to start off with just kind of getting that thought process going in a non-pedagogical way, but kind of leading to success with that as we go through. But it's about really setting the stage for those habits of mind or mathematical practices that we want our students to be used to doing, getting those collaborative conversations and things like that going. So there's a couple more that focus in on some of those practices. And then as we move into lesson 1-6, we find out that math is ours. And what's really nice about the math is ours is that it's setting the stage for rich mathematical discourse in the classroom, realizing that as a group, we learn more. And so that's where that really comes into play and talking about like community, agreements, how do people function with math in the real world? So it's a great kind of way to kick off the year and getting kids used to this kind of be curious moment that's here where there is no right answer. It's about what do you notice and what do you wonder about. So that was unit 1. And then as we move into unit 2, you're going to see that each one of the units launch with a readiness diagnostic, a focus question, some way to explore through STEM, and an ignite activity. And then we move into the lessons, and each one of the units may have between 4 and 10 lessons there. And in those lessons, they're unfolding with those be curious moments. They get an opportunity to explore and develop the content. We'll always practice and reflect. We assess and then differentiates at the end, but it's kind of the umbrella that holds all of this together because every step of the way you have the opportunity to differentiate the instruction. The units close with a unit vocab review that includes vocabulary, a review of the content. There is a performance task that is in the books that goes with every single one of the units. There is opportunity for mathematical modeling as well as fluency practice. So building on concepts from elementary school, building that fluency, especially those topics that are really important in the middle school courses as well. So let's jump into here. Okay, so the unit opener with that diagnostic assessment, the STEM activity, the Ignite activity, and always ways to build the language of mathematics. We want our students to have a common mathematical vocabulary, and you're going to see lots of pointers in the teacher's editions on how to build that language of mathematics. But one of the things, and this is definitely a teacher favorite, is the fact that we have that readiness diagnostic, and that can be done paper pencil or it can be done digitally, and it provides targeted intervention. So my example here is from 7th grade or course 2. And what you're going to see is the success in this particular unit relies on content that comes from 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So if the students are weak in any of those topics, we provide guided support intervention lessons right within the teacher experience. So you don't have to go find things that help reinforce this content that is from those prior grade levels. So it is definitely a teacher favorite resource, and you'll see it in the online experience. It'll always say guided support. So when you see that, you'll know that it's coming directly, it's supporting that targeted intervention that's in the book. And when I tell you this is a teacher favorite, this is definitely a teacher favorite. Then each one of the units is going to bring the world into focus through STEM activities. So we're going to really try to focus the students in on where this math is used in the real world in those types of careers. So this one is talking about fish farming. And how that helps with sustainability and those types of things. And so you're going to see that the unit starts off with this essential question that is supported all the way throughout the entire unit. And then we begin with a STEM activity and we end with one as well. So hold that thought as we get to those. But this is one of those STEM activities. So there's always a mathematical modeling prompt. But these are, and this is brand new to our middle school series, and these are these STEM adventures. And the only thing I can try to equate those two for you all are kind of like science has always had these really cool virtual labs, and these are kind of that virtual lab type of experience for our students in the math classroom. So definitely something that we are very excited because we've never had these before. So those are some really great STEM adventures that show up there. And then of course, if you don't want to do the digital, there is always a great mathematical modeling prompt that goes along with it. So we started the unit off with that STEM question that's there, or that essential question with that STEM activity. We're going to end it with that STEM adventure. But in between that, we're also going to ignite student curiosity. And this is Dr. Raj Shah, who says we need to bring curiosity, wonder, and joy back into the classroom and make math irresistible for kids. So we ask questions where they get an opportunity to just start talking. And they were talking about looking at that picture that's there, that STEM question that's there, and really kind of bringing in their own background knowledge into that. As a teacher, I encourage you to listen very closely as to what that is happening during those conversations, because sometimes the kids might be sneaking in some great math vocabulary that they already know about that you can build upon. So it's a great opportunity for you to listen to what are the things that are exciting the students as they're going through. Then we move into the lessons themselves, and we're going to reveal the understanding. I told you that we really want to focus on building a common vocabulary for the students. So you're going to see all the way throughout the book, you'll see little notations that talk about building the language of mathematics. It'll explain some of the things that are here. It talks about if you wanted to build a word wall with your students, and that this is a really great graphic organizer that you might want to use for some kind of word wall kinds of things. But there's a variety of different graphic organizers, and they're all meant to help all of our students learn the language of math, because I know a lot of students are also learning English, but if they're also learning the language of math, that's like another language for them. So it's a great tool for helping to unlock that for them. So after we open up the unit, we're going to move into the lessons. And somewhere in the middle of those lessons, you're going to see a formative assessment math probe. It might come after lesson 2, it might come after lesson 4 or 5, but the intent of this is to uncover misconceptions and overgeneralizations that our students have. And you're going to see in your teacher's edition examples of student work, authentic student work, to see where students might be making mistakes. In this example that's on the screen, it's talking about which one is the better buy. Definitely helping to create informed consumers out there, but just helping you uncover any misconceptions. And if there are misconceptions, there's information in your teacher's edition that lets you know exactly how to address that misconception. Great point that's there. And if you didn't want to do it after lesson 3.2, you did it after lesson 3.3, that's absolutely fine as well. But the lessons will continue. And then at the end of the lessons, we're going to do some mathematical modeling. We can build on that procedural skill and fluency. There's that page of practice in the student edition. And then the unit review is there. And then there's a performance task in the book There's also another one for you online. And then for unit assessments, we're going to give you two pre-made forms of a unit assessment. You can mix and match those, you can customize them, you can bring in your own questions, but we give you two that we think are pretty good. And they're two parallel versions of an assessment that you might want to give, maybe a pre-test and a post-test, or maybe you're focusing on mastery learning and you want to use one as a test and one as a retest. It is completely up to you. But one thing that's super unique about this program is the amount of time that we give to allow an in-depth understanding of the content. So you're going to see in this example, there are 7 lessons, but this unit is paced out to be 19 days. And that's because every lesson is paced out for a 2-day experience for the students. Day 1 focusing on just letting kids explore the content, and day 2 is on developing the understanding that goes along with it. Can you combine it? Absolutely, if that's what you need to do to save a little bit of time, but it is purposefully paced to allow for a greater investigation of the content. So 2 days per lesson and up to 5 additional days for assessment and differentiation. Completely up to you. It is a completely flexible program. When we talk about our multilingual learners, it does have, you're going to see in your teacher's edition, you're going to see a little icon here. It says LOM, and that is focusing on the language of math. Whenever we're looking at terms in the teacher edition, if they're highlighted, they're new terms. If they're not highlighted, then these are terms from prior grade levels that we are building upon. But they're really important still that kids, if they're not quite sure what it is, we make sure that they have that vocabulary support that goes along with them. And they're going to learn these words in the context of the lesson. Then you're also going to see in your teacher's edition specific call outs to things like number routines that are going to help students build fluency. You're going to see mathematical language routines that really help students learn that language of math. And then one of my favorites is the sense-making routines, because too many times kids feel like if they use a calculator and it spits out an answer, that must be the correct answer. So instead, we really focus on getting kids to understand, does that answer that I created actually make sense? So these you're going to see all throughout your teacher's edition. And then you'll also see some multilingual learners scaffolds that are there. So if you have students who are just coming into a English level course, things you can do for entering students as they're developing their understanding and as they're bridging that understanding as well. So let's see. And it says we have some intermittent kinds of coming in and out, and I think it's just one of those days, but this is being recorded. So we will make sure that you guys have that recording that goes along with it. Hope I'm not bouncing in and out. But when we talk about the lessons themselves, if you were to open up the teacher edition and look at any lesson, you would see the lesson, and then you can kind of see where you're at in that progression of that unit. You're going to see the learning targets. What are the things we want our students to be able to do? You'll see the mathematical practices as well as the national standards, the NCTM standards, the math terms, and then in any kind of academic terms. And I think this is really a unique twist that we have added this year as well. And then if it mentions some materials and it mentions a teaching resource, that's going to be in your teacher experience. We hope that you guys have maybe some math manipulatives that you might want to use hands-on, but also know that whenever we're using manipulatives, we also have a digital version of those manipulatives available for you as well. All right. So then when you move, if you're looking at a teacher's edition, I want to just really point out to you, there's always some like shaded areas. And in this case, it's this lesson highlights and key takeaways in this math background. This is phenomenal information, especially for our brand new teachers. Now, if you've been teaching a while, You probably know this, but if you're new to a particular grade level or you're supporting a new teacher, this is invaluable. So it lets you know what are the things that kids need to learn before they walk out of your classroom. So really important. This is the main ideas that we want our students to have before they walk out. But then this is what we're building on. What is that math background? We're building on understanding of equivalent fractions that we hope they had from prior grade levels. But again, if they didn't, you have those guided support intervention lessons. So it lets you know kind of where they should have gotten that, but maybe you have one of your students in that math is, as we're learning their math biography at the very beginning, maybe one of them tells you that they missed a few lessons or something like that. It's going to be a great part with there as well. All right, so these are wonderful. So there are daily number routines to build fluency. And this is one of the places where teachers say, always ask me, do I have to do all of them? And the answer is no. Daily number routines are something that's built to take 3 to 5 minutes. So you might choose to do them at the beginning of class, maybe in the middle of the class as a transition or a closing activity. Some teachers choose one and they, just kind of stick with that. But every lesson gives you two choices. You're going to see in this case, we have Give Me Five or In My Head. And so you can choose, maybe you have time in your day to do both of them. But you guys, these are amazing. And I'm going to show you an example of one. This is, the Give Me Fives are definitely one of my favorites, but use all of the numbers in any order with any operation to equal the target number, the number that's in red. And so, if we were all together in a room, I would give you a little bit of time and have you input your answers. But what I want you to notice is there are a lot of different answers. And when kids do this, granted, this isn't seventh grade content, but anytime we can get kids to realize that one, there are multiple ways to answer this question. And so in a classroom, we need to listen to our peers because they might expose something that we had never thought of before. So a lot of times when I'm working with teachers, they come up with something that no other teachers ever said before. So it's kind of fun. I have often thought of these as something that I might do as a maybe not just 3 to 5 minutes, but maybe this number routine becomes one that I put on the wall and come back to and just encourage the students to continue to come up with new ones because, it's very easy to say the quantity 7 minus 6 times the quantity 4 times 3 times 1. So lots of different, and maybe you were thinking of a different one, but lots of different ways to be able to see that. And I want you to think about what happens there. We talk about the quantity we're bringing in parentheses. When we talk about order of operations, and I want you to think about this too. How many math problems would kids be doing while they're doing this? Because if your kids are like ours here, a lot of times, if you gave them 10 questions to do for homework, oh, that's terrible. But you give them one deep question like this, where there's lots of possibilities, they're going to do a lot more than 10 problems. So it's a kind of a fun way to be able to introduce the math to the students and build on that prior knowledge that's there. So as we move into the lesson itself, the lesson model, every lesson is going to start with some sort of launch activity. We're going to move into explore and develop. We'll always assess, we'll practice and reflect. And again, that differentiate is kind of what holds everything together. Now, here's where the fun comes in. And if you're taking notes, it's a really good place to write this down. Lessons are 2 days. Day one is exploring. So kids are just exploring their understanding of the content. Day two, we're developing more of that understanding. So if you are one of those teachers that likes to do like work through some examples for kids, those types of things, and have them kind of copy what you're doing, I want to encourage you because you're going to see through this when kids are exploring on this day one, it's a good time for you to not say a whole lot, but in day two, you're going to help them really kind of develop that understanding as they go through. So lots of ways just to get them to explore the content because we remember anything that we experience. So you're going to see this chart shows up in your teacher's edition. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that that's kind of how it breaks down. Lesson one, or I'm sorry, session one or day one, and day 2. And when we talk about those days, they're about 45 minutes in length. So let's dig in and take a look at an actual example. In session 1, we're going to move into this notice and wonder. So in this case, I bet you can kind of guess what we're looking at. We're moving into scale drawings. And so we're taking a look at, a scale model of the Eiffel Tower versus the entire Eiffel Tower, but getting a whole lot of things about what do you notice, what do you wonder. Some students might say, I've been there. Well, good for them. So it's, what do they notice? Oh, that's a smaller version of the bigger version. So lots of different ways to kind of get them going. And these be curious moments are something that don't take very long. It's a great kind of warm up at the very beginning of class, something that you can do. And in your teacher's edition, you're going to see some little prompts that show you how you can kind of emphasize what students are doing in this. But here's where things get really amazing. And this is now, as a teacher, you have an instructional choice. When we move into the explore and develop phase, when we're moving into that exploration, you get to choose. Do you want to do more of an activity-based exploration where kids are using manipulatives, where they're kind of changing variables, where they're just doing some great exploration of the content, really big focus on productive struggle? Or are you a little bit more traditional and you prefer to do a guided exploration? You can do that. Those are a little bit more teacher facilitated. They focus on a question and answer format with lots of mathematical discourse. It does not matter. But so if classroom A chooses to do activity based, and the next door teacher decides to do the guided exploration, the students are going to get the same exact content, just delivered in a little bit different way. And I do want to say, if you find yourself doing a lot of guided exploration, I want to encourage you at some point in time to maybe dip your toe in over here in this activity-based exploration. And if you want to know a great lesson to try it in, your teacher's edition lets you know the lessons that we feel like are very strong to be done using activity-based, as well as what lessons might be better to be done with a guided exploration. All of the lessons can be done either one or the other, but if you're thinking about venturing out, maybe you choose to do mostly guided, I'm going to encourage you to try either lesson 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, or 2.5, doing one of these activity-based explorations because they really get those aha moments going with the students as we go through. So with that instructional choice, it really does not matter. You're going to see these things that say ETP, and this stands for effective teaching practices. So you're going to see that when you're doing activity-based or whether you're doing guided, you have some great questions that you can ask. So you're not kind of in that mode. When I was a teacher, I said a lot of things of like, did everybody get that? So these are some really good questions that you can ask. But I also want to point out to you that if you are doing activity-based exploration, the pages that guide your lessons are in the back of the student edition. So you're going to want to grab a student edition and you're going to want to flip to the very back, and that's where you're going to see your activity exploration journal. And so these explore activities, if you're doing activity based, are guided by what's in the back. And the first thing that you're going to see is the introductory question that's there. And then you get another choice here. If you are doing activity-based, you can choose to do it hands-on with manipulatives, maybe something that you print out, there's something that's hands-on, that's tangible for the kids to touch, or you can choose to do a digital experience because there's a digital interactive. Both equally strong. It just depends on your preference in the classroom. I have a lot of teachers that say, wow, we do a lot of stuff digitally. Is there any way to just close the devices for the day? Absolutely. Try the activity-based exploration and do the hands-on variety of that. Just a wonderful way to be able to do that. So it may be a handout that you do. They might be using some different tools, or they might be utilizing that digital experience. So either one is a equally rigorous way for students to get that activity-based exploration as they're going through. And then it's going to end with some concluding questions. So again, day one is just about having that, oh, look at all of this cool math stuff that's there. Now, meanwhile, in classroom B, where that teacher has said, you know what, I want to do this as a guided exploration, they're going to have opportunities to collaborate and connect, and this is mathematical language routine. So you're going to see those are brought into there. So effective teaching practices, mathematical language routine, good questions. If you choose to do the guided exploration, you're going to notice that when you're looking at any lesson, there's a front and then there's a back to that lesson. The front of that lesson is day one. The back side of that page is day two. Pretty amazing. Now people look at this and they say, but wait a minute, there's not a whole lot of explanation that happens here. And that's because this page really comes to life with those step-by-step pieces of it when you use the digital presentation. And I'll show you where you can find the digital presentations. They're really interactive, exciting. They have all kinds of things happening in there. But we also know that sometimes, like today, the internet is not playing nice. So there is always a backup PowerPoint presentation. It is downloadable. You can customize it. You can make it whatever you want, turn it into guided notes, however you need to do that. But your day, if you're choosing to do guided, is going to be driven by page one of the lesson and the interactive or PowerPoint presentation that goes along with it. Now, when we move into at the end of day one, there's always going to be an exit ticket. So this exit ticket provides some formative assessment, and you'll find these in the digital teacher experience so that you can print them. I will let you know they do print 2 on a page. So the bottom part of this would have been lesson 2-2. So you just cut them in half, or you can give the whole page to students, but that's what the exit ticket is. So the practice that's in the student edition is right there, just past those the lesson pages. If you're doing guided exploration, there is a page of practice. There's a front and there's a back. The front is day one. The back is day two. And the students are going to do that practice. It doesn't matter whether you chose to do the activity-based or whether you chose to do the guided. They should be able to do this front page that's of practice that's there. And you're going to see it's just the first day is mainly on building that conceptual understanding, or DOK, standing for depth of knowledge. It lets you know that these are some kind of rigorous questions that are there, but all students should be able to do those. When we move into day two, or session 2, you'll see it called, again, we're going to have a Be Curious moment that's there. So both classrooms are both doing the Be Curious moment. And a lot of times we're building kind of off of that day one Be Curious. They might be taking it a little bit of a step further. But these are, again, really good ways for students to kind of see that math in the real world. We try to bring in some real world aspects whenever we can. Now, when we move into day two, the best advice is to continue your chosen pathway. So if you started activity-based, we recommend that you do day two as activity-based. If you started guided exploration, we recommend that you do day two as guided exploration. But you know your students best. If the activity-based exploration did not go well on day one and you need to pivot a little bit, that is completely up to you, however you want to do that. But the activity-based exploration is going to continue with those pages that are in the activity exploration journal that's in the back. You'll notice we always give you a suggested amount of time. And here we're bringing in those mathematical language routines, and as an effective teaching practice, we're eliciting evidence of student thinking. So we're kind of tying all of that up, making sure that they got what they were supposed to get out of day one with that exploration that's there. Amazing mathematical discourse questions that are here for you. So again, instead of asking, does anybody have any questions? We can actually ask really deep thinking questions that are built into there. And then you're going to see some things with those mathematical practices. So we've got some prompts, or those are built into there as well. Now, meanwhile, day two in the guided exploration classroom, That teacher is going to, the students are going to turn the page. They're on the back side of where they did day one lesson. And the teacher is going to continue utilizing those interactive presentations that are there with some really good questions and some ways to kind of get the student exploring the content. So when you look at that page and you think, there's not a whole lot there, be sure that you check out the presentations because that is where this comes to life. I like to talk to a lot of my teachers. I say, if you remember the days when we used to write everything out on like an overhead transparency and we would scoot the paper down the page, this is kind of like that to the nth degree, in terms of just letting us bring that content to life for the students. So a really great way to be able to do that. So again, that's going to be guided by those interactive presentations, but also a lot of opportunity for kids to collaborate and connect. So I really encourage you to focus in on that mathematical discourse that's built into those the lessons as well. Now, towards the end of day two, so if we're looking in the student edition, activity exploration journal pages in the back. At the lesson level, we've got day one, we've got day two, and then the next page is going to be summarize and apply. Both groups, activity-based and guided exploration, are both doing this page in the student edition. This is where we're going to summarize the understanding and give them an opportunity to immediately apply their understanding of that. So it always is a summarize and apply, and it's the same for both of the pathways. And then this is pretty exciting in terms of there is a lesson quiz. So I just did this amazing teaching. Did my students get what they needed to out of day one and day two? I get a lesson quiz that I can do. My students can do paper pencil or they can do it digitally. If they do it digitally, we grade it for you and we give you some amazing reports that go along with that. So I usually encourage teachers, try to do as much digital as you can because it takes some of the load off of you in terms of that grading part that's there. And then, just like day one had a page of practice, day two also has a page of practice. But these questions you're going to see are going to start to move in, still continuing some of that conceptual understanding, but definitely moving more into the application part of that. And in your teacher's edition, we'll call out things like common errors and things like that that our students have in the classes. So it's just a lesson model that you just kind of work through and work through which parts work best for you. But again, I encourage you, if you're kind of that thinking, oh, I'm going to do a lot of that guided, I want to encourage you to try at least one lesson each unit and try that activity-based pathway. They are pretty exciting, especially when we're bringing in the digital or any of those hands-on opportunities that are there. Now, we also know that sometimes we have students who are absent. A lot in the States, you guys might have that problem as well. So this is something that is super, super, super exciting. And this is our math replay video. The math replay video is a video tutorial of, and I think, let me make sure the sound is sharing here with you. Let me turn that on. So she's going to walk them through the lesson that was in the book. So this was like day one of the lesson. I'll turn that up for you a little bit. The sound is really, really, really low. But I promise you, she is talking there through that content that's there. Let's see if I can make it a little louder. Really quiet here. She's not that much of a quiet talker, but she's going to walk them through that lesson. So if you have kids who are absent, this is a perfect thing for them. If you have parents who say, well, that's not how I learned it, this is a perfect resource for them. This is also wonderful if you're a new teacher or if you're supporting a new teacher, because they can actually hear some of the mathematical terms that they might want to show within any one of those lessons. So you're going to see that this is day one, and then it goes into day two. So this is a teaching of what's in the student edition. So if you're doing guided exploration, you've got kids who are absent, perfect place for them. If you've got kids who just weren't paying attention, perfect place for them as well. So it is a really unique kind of experience. And I'm going to show you just real quickly what that student experience looks like for our students. So I'm in my teacher digital platform that's here. But if I want to see what this looks like from a student perspective, I can simply go to the roster that's over here on the left, and you'll see a list of your students, and you can actually go to the three dots at the end and you can emulate a student. So it's a really great way to go in and see what the student experience looks like. So anything that the students are utilizing, any of the resources, those types of things, they simply click this button that says browse this course. And if we were working in proportional relationships, and this experience is very similar to exactly what you are doing in your classroom as well. So remember I said there was a presentation? Look right here. The students have access to a presentation as well. So whether they were absent or whether they just need to kind of take another look at that, they simply can move through the individual resources. So here we can see, and as a teacher, you customize this. What did you want to do for the Be Curious? What did you want to do for the number routine? This teacher chose to do an activity-based exploration. And here we were talking about some dog breeds. And so if the student wanted to maybe go home and do a little bit of the information with that, but you can see any of the pieces that the teacher chooses to use. So this is the guided exploration that goes with this lesson. And when I told you before that it kind of takes what's in the book and brings it to life, that's because this changes from resource to resource, but right here, this resource actually has 6 different pages or slides within this presentation. So sometimes they're kind of interactive, sometimes there might be a video that goes along with it. We're asking kids some great terms inside here. So this kind of unveils that conversation as they are working through. So whatever you choose to include in your presentation, the students can also see that in their presentation. So it gives them that opportunity to be able to see that. So if there were particular resources, if you turned on the math replay video, they would see that both in the presentation as well as in their main experience. So here's what the teacher was doing in day 1. Here's what the teacher was doing in day 2. And students just love to have those math replay videos. So if they happen to be absent, it's a great resource that's right there. For now, I'm going to exit that emulation mode, but I want you to know that it is really super easy for the students to navigate and to find exactly what they want. You also, if you can add things directly to their calendar, so it shows up right here front and center, so they can't say I didn't find it. So we'll come back to the teacher experience in just a moment. We're talking about revealing the possibilities when we look at assessment and the practice and reflect and the differentiate inside your teacher's edition. This is an amazing 2-page spread that's in your teacher's edition, and it lets you know the resources that you can use. So if you did that lesson quiz and your students are, however they did, you're going to see kind of the coding that's here, but you're going to see that we give you resources to reinforce understanding, to build proficiency, as well as to extend thinking. And I want to show you something that people don't always notice right away. We give you a printable resource that you could use or a digital resource that you can use. So again, super easy for depending on what type of classroom you want to have. And then I also want you to see this is brand new for our middle school math programs is that we have a digital game center. So there are games that students can play with in mathematics and they can access all levels of the game. So lots of kind of fun is going to happen there as well. If the lesson, so this is your lesson quiz, will let you know that you might want to utilize a resource that builds the proficiency or reinforces the understanding, or for our advanced kids, kinds of extends the thinking. So all of that is right at your fingertips. And those digital games are just something that's a little bit fun that's inside there. But reinforcing understanding. Worksheet gives a little bit of re-instruction, or the students can watch this, what's called a Take Another Look mini lesson. These are about 15 minutes in length. They do have, if you assign them to your students to do, they have a check step that's at the end. It's an interactive lesson to reinforce targeted skills. So if you have students who are absent, I would always ask them to watch the math replay video first. And if they're still struggling with that, they need to see it another way, these Take Another Look mini lessons are fabulous for that. I also have a lot of teachers who are choosing to use these for maybe a mastery-based learning. If the students didn't do well on an assessment and they need to do some reinforcement before they get a reassessment, that's where these could come into play. Totally up to you where you want to be able to
A
utilize those.
ratio is a
But they do
comparison of two
have the,
quantities.
and I'm
Ratios
gonna
can be described using phrases such
she,
as
now you can
out
hear her
of
talking, I
and
think.
for.
But she's going to walk them through an understanding. So there is additional teaching, there's additional interactive modeling, and then at the very end, there is a check step, and that check step does repeat back to you. So it's a great, or report back to you. So it's a great resource. You also have the ability, if you need, when we're building proficiency, there is additional lesson practice. There's an interactive version of this, so you can do that digitally. There's also spiral review for every lesson that's going to go back to the prior couple of lessons that are there. And then the interactive practice allows students to really build their proficiency. You're going to see a bank of questions that are called kind of our extra practice, and those allow students to do things like getting a hint or watching a video that's built into there. So in the digital experience, it gives you that flexibility. And then extending the thinking again, both print and digital kinds of resources that are there. At the end of a lesson, or at the end of a unit, I should say, you're going to see that there is a vocabulary activity. There are going to be some review exercises, and you'll see it coded back to standards and DOK levels and lessons. You're going to see that performance task. Again, there's one in the book, but there's also additional ones that are available online. And then the mathematical modeling is both in the book and online as well. Here's an example of that fluency practice built right into the student edition. Do you have to do it? Absolutely not. But a lot of teachers like to do this because we're constantly building on that prior knowledge that our students have. So let's jump over real quickly to the teacher experience. And I want to show you on the left-hand side, these are kind of quick links to things that teachers utilize on a regular basis. In the center is our calendar, any assignments that are ready to grade. And over here on the side, you can see the student edition, the teacher edition, and the interactive one is just kind of like the slides would be in the presentation. And then down here, you can see this is a wonderful tool. So if you're writing things down, write down to download this implementation guide, because that tells you exactly how to implement the lessons. This is an invaluable resource for you as teachers. But what I mainly want you to know from today is that if you click right here where it says browse this course, think of this as kind of your magic button. You go to whatever unit it is that you are getting ready to teach. And if you open this first one, these are the unit level resources. So everything that we use in terms of opening up a unit. So in this case, that's that how do we choose which way we want to teach there. There are family letters available, so you can send those home to build that school to home connection. There's my readiness diagnostic. And do you remember I said that there were some things that were the guided support. So if students were weak in prerequisite skills that were from that third, fourth, and fifth grade, here are those guided support intervention lessons. You have them in print, but you also have a print kind of version in here as well. So if you wanted to utilize any of these, you simply click assign and it makes it really super easy to do. But if you open these up, the intent is not really for these to be assigned to students as much as they are to provide a kind of reteaching, a fun reteaching activity for you to use that's building on that prior knowledge. So this would be the worksheet that would go along with that particular resource that's there. So unit level resources, readiness diagnostic, targeted intervention. If I go back over here on the side and I'm getting ready to teach lesson 3.1, I can see that these are digital file folders. So I have my lesson resources, 2 number routines, day 1, day 2, my differentiate resources. So underneath lesson resources, this is where I want you to be sure that you download the backup PowerPoint presentation. So this presentation that's right here is that interactive one where we've already built things into there and you can customize it. But this you need to be online for. This one is a PowerPoint in case the internet's not working. So you just scroll down. If you want to include the learning targets in your interactive presentation, that's how you kind of customize that interactive presentation. So when I click things here, it's not affecting the PowerPoint, it's affecting this lesson presentation that's right here. So I come in, these are my e-solutions. It's a fully worked out step-by-step solution to every problem. I have my two different number routines. Maybe you said, Shelley, I don't you want to use that one. I want to use this one, or I want to use both of them. It's just that easy to add things in or out of the presentation. And yes, the students can see those too. Session one, the be curious moments there, and then you just decide, am I going to do activity based using the pages in the back? Ooh, that's the dog breeds one. Or am I going to use a more guided? Well, maybe today I'm going to feel a little bit better doing the guided exploration. Totally up to you, however you want to do that. The exit ticket would be something that you would assign. Here's a digital version of it, but you can also see the print-based version of it as well. Day two, Be Curious is already on. I'm going to switch from activity based and I'm going to do my guided exploration. It is completely, you customize that to be exactly what you need. My lesson quiz, I'm going to prefer to assign it to my students digitally, but there's that math replay. Look at that. If you don't want your kids to have it, I don't know why you wouldn't. You can turn that on or off. If you assign it, it means the kids have to do it. Or if you didn't want it to be in the presentation or you felt like your kids wouldn't necessarily find it in the presentation, I like to do this. Click the three dots, click Add to Calendar. So that lets the students know that that's what I did today. And I'll show you where that shows up. Under Differentiate, here is that digital version of that building, reinforcing understanding. So you're going to see we take and break down the content in the lesson into little tiny pieces. So you can choose to put those in the presentation, which means kids can view them. But if you want the data from those, you do need to assign those to your kids to do. But here's the print version of them. Here's the digital version. Building proficiency. Oh, there's the games. We love the games. But then we also have a digital version and a print version for extra practice. Spy review, digital, print. And then we have, when we're talking about extending the thinking, we have that print version, and then the digital would be the STEM adventure that shows up there as well. So the best thing I can say is just try the different ways, the different resources that are built in, but just to make sure that you don't have any problems with an internet connection, be sure that under lesson resources, you download the PowerPoint. Now, I'm going to jump back to click here where it says dashboard, and I want you to see it remembers where I was. So if tomorrow I'm teaching this connect ratios, rates, and proportions, I simply click this button to launch the presentation, and I am in that presentation that I built. It is just that easy to build that presentation that's there. So there's my Be Curious moment that's there, and then my number routine, and then remember I chose to do that guided exploration. So really easy way to be able to see that. And then you can see here that math replay video I added to the calendar for students to access. Now, we don't have time to go into all of the things with assessments, but I do want to just point out to you that there are a variety of assessments. Remember, there are 2 forms of assessment for every lesson. So you're going to see that here's my exit ticket and my lesson quizzes. Those are the things. So this is what I do day 1. This is what I do day 2. And when I look underneath my, my practice bank, I'm going to see my additional lesson practice, my spiral review, and then these questions, you guys, these would be my favorite. These dynamic practice questions mean that every single student in the class has the same type of question, but they all have different numbers built into them. So if you have problems with students perhaps assisting each other with their homework sometimes, I encourage you to try and make one of these assignments from the digital dynamic practice because it means that everybody can't just copy someone else's homework that's there. So lots of great tools are built into here. The best thing you can do is just kind of go in and explore the different resources that are there. And so there's my readiness diagnostic, my unit Form A and Form B at the end, parallel assessments, my exit tickets that go with the lessons, my lesson quizzes that go with day 2 of the lessons there as well. So let me jump back real quick over to my PowerPoint, see if there's any other slides that are in here. Just so you know that there are the unit assessments, the performance tasks. If you choose to use a performance task, there are rubrics. You do get these amazing reports. You can see how students did in activity performance as a whole class or as an individual student. You'll see standards performance-based reports. There are administrative reports. There is an amazing digital gradebook, and all of these reports are exportable into other formats as well. And with that, I only left 1 minute for questions, but if you've got a question that you want to type into Q&A, I will stay online and make sure that your questions get answered. But if not, I want to say thank you very much for your interest in Reveal Math Copyright 2025. It is a little different than our prior copyright editions, but I know that it is something that has really transformed the educational classroom and helped us kind of break out of our shell of doing a lot of guided exploration and getting teachers to do a little bit more of that activity-based part that's there. So I am going to jump over here and check on the chat. I know Laura said, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found the session helpful. And yes, Laura, you are very welcome. You can tell I love this program and I love math. So I want to say thank you so much for all of you who are teachers. It is truly the hardest job, second hardest job next to being a parent, but truly a tough job. And I am so thankful for all of you across the country. I see Thailand, I see the Philippines. I am so excited for you. And somebody said, hoping there's a counterpart for elementary of this Reveal Math. You are in luck. There is same thing, except the lessons are single day lessons, but you still get the choice that's built into there. So I'm really excited. And then Laura says, just a quick reminder, if you registered for today's session, you'll receive the recording via email within the next week. If you have any remaining questions or need further support, reach out. There is a back to school website page that's there. So there's resources, there's blogs. It talks about some of the back to school webinars. There's title specific general sessions. There's so much good stuff that's there. But we wish you all the best in your back to school preparations and in the days ahead. Take care and stay healthy. And we are so excited to have you here. And I am so glad you joined as well. Thank you. Questions come in. So if you do have any, just feel free to forward those on and we will make sure that you get an answer. But enjoy your teaching with Reveal Math. You are very welcome. Look at all these sweet messages. You guys are wonderful.